Hello there and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I'm glad you're here. So today I'm sharing with you several ways to create easel cards. Back in December, I showed you some easel cards that I made using particular die sets. Well, today I'll show you how to make easel cards in many different ways using whatever products you have. So I'll start with a basic easel card design and then we'll build it up to get more creative by incorporating die cuts and unique sizes. This video also has loads of stencil layering. I'm obsessed with using stencils for coloring. It's such a fast and easy way to add color. So I got a lot of examples for that too. Okay, let's get started with the basic easel card design. And let's look at the completed card first so you can see how an easel card works. From the front, it just looks like a normal card. But when you open it, it's got this fun, simple opening. And there is a piece inside that allows you to prop it up so you can stand it on display like an easel. I did give this to a few people to test, some non-crafters, and they all figured out how to do it no problem, but you could always mention inside the card that it is to stand up like an easel. This is the Pinkfresh Studio Seamless Starburst Circles Stamp Set and Stencil Layering Set. This is such a brilliant product design. It's a large 6x8 stamp set that can be used on its own. You can stamp all the pinwheels instead of doing the stenciling. But the stencil set has all of these stencils. There's 5 or 6 in there. And you just ink each one a different color and you get that fun pattern. You could also use the stencils alone. So again, you can do the stamp set, the stencils, or together. I like this set so much, I did 3 or 4 backgrounds using it today. Okay, so I'm starting with a piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And there are little tick marks on the stencil so you know where to line it up. Makes it very easy. And it also gives a stencil number on the top corner so you know what order to go in. But especially it helps you to know which side of the stencil to use for each layer. Okay, so I am using different colors of Pinkfresh Studio Die ink here. You can use whatever ink you prefer. And I'm using Gina blending brushes, but you could use any inking tool that you prefer. I thought I'd do each of these pinwheels a different color, kind of doing a rainbow going down the card, but you could do them all the same if you want to. The sky is the limit when using layering stencils. If your different areas are too close together, you can always mask off one so you can do each one different. Okay, now I'm lining up the second stencil and coming in with a few more colors. Now, all of these were light application of color. Now I'm coming in with the third stencil, and this time I'm doing the same colors of ink, but a heavier application of color. So it looks like I'm using a light and a dark ink, but I'm really using the same and doing a light inking the first go around and now a heavier inking. Once I've covered this one, I can move on to the fourth stencil. This one does those 2 little extra pinwheels in the back and do this with a heavy ink amount. I know I'm going through the stencil inking part very quickly, but I really want to make sure I give a lot of examples today of the easel card design. These stencil layering examples are super easy to do. Okay, now I have my MISTI stamping tool with a sticky mat inside, and I'm placing my background on there. And then I'm using my anti-static powder tool over the surface. Make sure your inks are good and dry. You might want to heat set it first. We're going to do some heat embossing. Okay, now I have the large background stamp from the stamp set, lined it up, super easy to line up. Now I'll stamp with Versamark Ink and press this down. Now, I've been using different tools to use as a Chucky tool. If you watch Gina Designs lives on Facebook, you'll know what I'm talking about. But these are tools to help apply pressure to your stamping tool as you ink. It helps with good coverage. I've been trying different ones. This is the Stampin Bug, I believe it's called. My friend Heather gave me this for Christmas, and it really works well too. So I'm just using different options, trying to figure out which one works best with my hand, but I thought I'd show them all with you so you can figure out what might work best for you if you're looking for a tool. I tell you, it really is helpful to have one of those tools to do right over the surface of the MISTI for good coverage. There are many out there and they're mostly sold on Etsy by crafters like us. Okay, so back to this. I stamped that with Versamark Ink, and now I'm using Hero Art's White Pearl Embossing Powder. This will be very subtle, but in real life you can really see it. It gives like a white metallic texture to it that really picks up the light nicely in real life and just enhances the colors behind it. You could have stamped those in colors, done whatever you want. Sky is the limit. Okay, now I'm back with the final stencil from the set. And this one you could have done more color, but I thought I would do Glitter Glitz Iridescent Glitter Gel over it so that there would be some sparkle. So we have inking going on, we have heat embossing, and we have some glitter gel. This is a really easy and fast product to use. I'll use it a couple times in this video and look at the sparkle you get. So here is the one I just did. It's got that heat embossing with the pearl powder and the Glitter Glitz gel on it. Such a fun background. Now on this next one, instead of heat embossing, I just stamped the background stamp with Hero Art's soft granite ink. So it looks kind of like a silver on there. On this next one, I heat embossed with silver embossing powder. So we have the inking, the Glitter Glitz gel, and the silver embossing powder. So now I have a few backgrounds. We can do some easel cards, but keep in mind this could be a great background for birthday, baby, any kind of celebration, or just an everyday background. Let's get started with this background. Notice I added some more small pinwheels in the background. For this, I die cut from a piece of scrap a small circle, and I lined it up with one of the pinwheels, that's what I'm calling these here, on the back of the stencil. Now when I ink over it, I just get this smaller bit. Now you could do the layering, but I thought I'd keep this simple by doing a light inking and just scattering it here and there with the different colors. So that's another way you can get more out of your stencils, by masking them for creative inking. Okay, let's do the easel card portion of this. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. So this is a basic easel card design. You start with a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 11. That's just a piece of cardstock cut down the middle. Then I'll score that down the middle, which is 5 1/2. This is how I make my basic top folding card that I use a lot in videos. We're going to change it up a little bit though. I need to create a score line halfway between the end and where we've already scored, and that is at 2 3/4 inches. So right here down the center, 2 3/4 inches. Then I will fold there, and you end up with this wonky looking long piece, which we will eventually turn into an easel card. Very simple, I promise. Now on this bottom flap here, I'm putting some strong adhesive. I chose to use Gina K Connect, but you could use double-sided adhesive if you prefer. I then have my background ready to go. I already matted it on black cardstock, and I'm gluing this easel card to the back of it. Now there's only glue on the bottom portion, that bottom flap, so you end up with this design. By the way, I bent my fingernail back really bad building some shelves, so I'm sorry for the big old band-aid there on the tip of my finger. Boy, does that hurt. Anyways, now I want to put something on the inside of the card that will form a stopper so that the easel card stays propped up. So I stamped on a piece of white cardstock. This is as wide as our card, but only about 2 inches tall. And I'm matting it with black cardstock and a second layer of black cardstock. I want this little ledge that I'm creating to be a bit thick so that the easel will prop up against it very easily. So now I'm gluing that on the inside of my card right along the bottom, and then I will trim off the excess. So again, this is a ledge inside of the card that the front of our card can be propped up against and stand up nicely. You can skip this if you want to. I will show you many ways to form a ledge throughout this video. So there you can see how it just tucks right up against it. So here's the completed card, not too much bulk to it. Now I did add some iridescent gemstones to the front, very simple. And here you can see when you open it up, there's plenty of room up there to write a personal message. And the card props up like an easel very easily. This is a very simple, basic easel card. Again, it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Here's another that I did with one of my other backgrounds. This time I used alphabet dies and die cut them from black cardstock. And then I covered that with aqua shimmer pen and glossy accents, so there's lots of shine on those. I also added the iridescent gemstones in the background. This time I put a sentiment that I cut out from white cardstock, and then matted twice with black cardstock so it has a bit of dimension, and that forms as the little edge or the prop for our easel card to stand up. So you can do all kinds of things there inside of the card. You can even write your personal message below it so it shows when it's propped, but I usually put it above. By the way, that you are next level amazing is from this Pinkfresh Studios, My Favorite Things to Say stamp set. This has lots of good ones. I encourage you to take a close look at this. I'll use it again in this video, but a lot of just really positive sentiments to send to someone. My favorite is not all superheroes wear capes. Okay, next is a birthday version of this. For this one, I used Adore alphabet dies from Pinkfresh Studio. Cut them from black cardstock and covered again with Tonic Aqua Shimmer Pen, which by the way is back in stock, and glossy accents. I then stamped some birthday messages, one on the inside, that again I matted with 2 layers of black cardstock. Plenty of room to write a message. You could add more decoration on the inside, or at least the inside bottom, but oftentimes I like to leave it very simple, so the focus is more on the front of the card. Now for that last one, I used some birthday sentiments from this Pinkfresh Studio Happy Birthday Sentiment stamp set. A lot of different messages in here for birthday, a lot of creative ones that are great to put inside of a card or on an envelope too. There are coordinating dies available for this one to cut out those large cursive letter sentiments. Okay, now that we've done a basic easel card, let's step it up by making the propped up portion a large die cut. In this case, we'll keep it simple with a large scallop frame. So here's a look at the completed card. You can see the front of the card is a scallop frame die cut, and you can prop it up very easily with the ledge on the inside. So the overall size of this is just under 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it'll fit in a traditional envelope. Okay, for this, I'm using the Floral Print Layering Stencil set from Pinkfresh Studio. It's just stencils, and this is one of the best layering stencil sets of all time. Look at this beautiful background. You could make this Christmas feel by doing greens and reds and golds. You could make it a soft spring feel by doing pastels. I'm telling you, this is one of those layering stencil sets that I'll reach for often, and look how easy it is to do. I'm going to fly through this once again because we've got a lot of easel cards to do. But you just move each layer in and do it in a different color. You could always heat emboss this by just pressing Versamark ink over the stencil, removing the stencil and adding powder. Now in this case, I'm using a big piece of cardstock just because I like to do that sometimes. Then I don't have to tape it on the back. So I have the big piece of cardstock in the corner of my Waffle Flower Media Mat. Any kind of little corner would work. And then I can line up the stencils with that corner every time and they'll line up perfectly. I'm doing a medium application of color, so there can be some like darkened edges here and there and some softer spots. It just creates a beautiful background, and check this out. It's like magic. I'm just blown away by that. I think it's such a beautiful pattern. I'm also really liking this new die set from Pinkfresh Studio. You have these 2 tags and then words you can die cut from the tags or use separately. So here's a close look at the words. You can use the letters or the negative space. I'm just going to use the word thanks without the tag and use the negative space on a cardstock strip. So I'm taping the word thanks onto the edge of this peach cardstock. Remember, I can use those letters if I want. And now I have a cardstock strip with the word cut from it. Very fast to do. On the back of that, I'm putting some white cardstock so that the white letters show through the peach cardstock strip. So easy to do. Now to create that wreath for behind the sentiment banner, I die cut twice, once from a green glitter cardstock and once from a green metallic cardstock. I wanted to have a lot of shine on that. Found it in my scrap drawer. I used this Leafy Circle Die, and I layered those green glitter and metallic cardstocks on white cardstock for dimension. I'm now wrapping my banner around the wreath, so I know where to create my little score lines. So I'm just folding right there along those edges, and now I know this will stretch across it. Now my banner's too long, so I'll trim off some of the excess, and I'm going to show you a way to cheat and make your own banner, not needing a die set. So right along the edges, I'm putting some adhesive on the flaps too. And now I'll wrap this around our little wreath. So we have the front portion of our banner, and I just want those little flags sticking out the end. So I'm taking my 2 leftover pieces of the banner, holding them together, So I've got them held together here. I put a cut right down the center end, and then cut from the corner to the end of that middle cut, and the corner to the end of that middle cut. Now we have two V edges cut to the same, and these can be our little banner edges. So I cut them shorter, put some adhesive on the back, and I'll tuck it back there a little offset to give that little banner feel. Super easy to do. Okay, now off screen, I took our background and added a frame around it using this scallop stitched frame from Pinkfresh Studio. I die cut it twice from white cardstock and once from pink, and layered it on top of each other and cut off the excess of the background. So it is about 4 by 5 1/4. Now this time I need to start with a smaller note card. So I have a typical 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card, and I'm trimming it down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches so it can be behind our scallop frame. So it's a bit smaller than the scallop frame. But we need to add the easel to this. So I have my scoring tool, and remember, for an easel card you want to score halfway between the edge of the cardstock and your fold line. So in this case that's 5 inches. So I need to do a score for our easel at 2 1/2. So you can make an easel card out of any size card. You just take the length from the edge of the card to the score line and divide that in half, and that's where your easel fold goes. Okay, so again, this is 3 3/4 by 5 inches, score line at 2 1/2. Okay, on that bottom flap only on the bottom flap, I'm putting strong adhesive and gluing that to the back of our die cut background. So this way we have that fun scallop edge for the edge of our card instead of a typical rectangle card. Okay, for the sentiment on the inside of the card, I use this Pinkfresh Studio Friendship Bloom stamp set. Now this stamp set is gorgeous, and there is a layering stencil set that can be used together or separately. It's so beautiful. I did make some flowers with it, but didn't have time to turn it into cards. It's so easy to use. And check this out. This is the guide that comes with it. On the top left is the layering stencils without the stamp, and on the right is the layering stencils with the stamp. I tell you, I think I'll never take the time to color in a flower again. I don't enjoy coloring that much with all of these layering stencils that are coming out. Makes it so easy. Okay, so I white heat embossed a sentiment from that stamp set on some peach cardstock. I do have 2 additional layers of peach cardstock underneath that, so it has some dimension to form that ledge for the easel. I also use those scallop rectangle dies to create scallop borders to go above and below it. So here's a look at the completed card. All I did was add some pink pearls to the background to enhance it a bit. So you can see how you could easily change up the colors of this to do a card for different seasons. And because we used that frame die, we have a shaped card instead of a rectangle card. So here is the easel portion. You can see how easy it is to stand up, and you see that additional sentiment on the inside. Okay, for my next 2 examples, I stepped it up quite a bit, and for the easel portion, we're using a die cut shape. It's surprising how easy this is to do, and you can use any large die cut shape for this. So let's take a look at one of the completed cards so you can see it in action. This is what it looks like when the card is closed. And when you open it up, you can make it stand up like an easel, and the standing portion is just the wreath itself. The overall card size of this is once again 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but you could do whatever shape you prefer. Now for these, I used the new known and loved stamp set and the layering stencils that go with it. Again, these can be used together or separately, and I'll actually do 2 examples, one with the stamp set, one without. So you can get a beautiful wreath very quickly. Now once again, I'm going to fly through the inking of the stencils because it really is effortless. It's very easy to do. In most of my examples today, I am doing just inks over the stencils, but keep in mind, you can do different layers of gel paste, you can do heat embossing, you can really get creative with the layering. But what I really like the layering stencils for is quick coloring. Really makes a big difference to me, and I'm able to create more cards with better results because I'm not really happy with my coloring. So this is one of the reasons I'm really liking the layering stencils lately. So after inking this up completely, check out this beautiful wreath that we have. Now I created another one, but with peach and pink inks. And on one of these, we'll stamp the wreath on top. On the other one, we'll leave it alone. So you can see a comparison on using the stencils with the stamp and without. So here I have my MISTI stamping tool. You can use an acrylic block if you prefer. And I am just lining up the wreath stamp and stamping it with black ink. You could do heat embossing here if you want to, or something more subtle, but I wanted to show a traditional outline. So there's a comparison between the two. I can't decide which one I like better. I then use the coordinating die to cut them out. Okay, now let's do the easel portion. I'm starting with a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 11 and scoring at 5 1/2, just like we did before. But this time, instead of doing a second score line, we're going to cut off part of one end. So I'm cutting about 2 inches, a little bit more, from one end of the card. You'll see why in a moment. Now I wanted to cover this card with the Pinkfresh Studio Stitch die, so I cut it from white cardstock, and I'm putting a mark where that cut line is. I could have measured it if I wanted to, and then cutting this background there. So the big piece gets glued over the top flap, and this small piece will get glued on the bottom of the inside of our card. That way, when the card is closed, you see that stitch pattern over the entire background. Next, I want to do the ledge for the inside of the card. So I stamped a sentiment on a piece of purple cardstock. That sentiment is from the My Favorite Things to Say stamp set that I showed you earlier in this video. I love that sentiment that says, "Thank you for being my unpaid therapist." And now right above that, I put a little glitter cardstock strip just for a little bit of fun. And then I made another border the same way, but without the stamped image. One of these will go on the inside, one will go on the outside. And it just gives a nice defined edge. Now the one that will go on the inside, I'm gluing right up against the edge there. So the top of that stitched piece that's in there. And this will form our ledge. So you can see it lines up with the top flap. Now the other border without the sentiment, that will go right above that flap. So the two little glitter strips will kind of meet in the middle and be behind our wreath. So then I'll trim off the excess from that, and we'll have our card ready to add our die cut. Off screen, I die cut a few circles. These circles are a bit smaller than our wreath. One of the circles I'm folding in half. Doesn't matter how pretty it looks, we just want to fold it in half and put glue on one half of it. I'm going to take this and glue this to the back of the front flap of our card, lining up the score line with that edge where the glitter is. So we just have this half a circle kind of hanging off the bottom of the front of our card. Now I need to build some dimension on that circle flap. Because the front flap of our card has some dimension to it because of all the cardstock we added, I want this to lay flat with it. So I have those extra circles. I cut it in half and I'm gluing it right on top. And then I will glue another on top of that. That just makes the front of the card smooth for or level, I guess I would say, for our wreath to rest on it. You could skip this, but I find it gives better results. Okay, so now we have our wreath that we can add to this flap. I am first putting a circle die cut to the back of it, just so you can't see through the center of the wreath. By the way, my wreath is the stamped one and 2 white die cut wreaths behind it for dimension, because you know me, I love my dimension. Now I'm putting adhesive on that circle flap, laying my wreath right onto that glue and pressing it down. And now we have our easel card. So now that circle flap allows us to make our wreath the easel portion. Such a fun design. I plan to do more of these in another video with some other creative ways to do it. For a sentiment, I used this small Sentiment Suite Thank You die from Pinkfresh. This is new. It has the word and the shadow. I die cut the word from black and the shadow from white and added it right to the center of our wreath. And I also added some silver gemstones. You can see how that catches the light nicely. So when you open up the card, plenty of room to write your personal sentiment, and that fun sentiment is on the inside. And you can prop it open like an easel card and have it on display. I really like this because that additional sentiment shows when it's propped up, but your personal message is on the inside. Now I used the other wreath to create another card. It's the same design. I did everything the same. I just changed up some of the colors and the sentiment that I used on the inside. This time I skipped the metallic and kept everything soft, and white heat embossed my sentiment on the inside. I like that I get two different looks whether or not I use this stamped image with the layered stenciling or without. By the way, the sentiment in this one is from the new Thank You Simply Sentiment stamp set from Pinkfresh Studio. Many different ways to say thank you in here. And I always appreciate that because I send a lot of thank you notes. Some of these are a little more serious, some are a little more playful, and I think that's fun to have both options. Okay, let's move on to some more types of easel. This is a horizontal card, and I have two versions to show you. The first one is very simple. Okay, for this one, you can see it as a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card, but horizontal. But it still opens up as an easel card and has a large die cut on the front. This one looks really cool propped up. For that large floral image on the front, I'm using another layering stencil set and coordinating stamp set. I'm going to skip showing the creation of this because it's very easy. You just line up the stencils and add the ink over it, and then you can stamp the image on top of that. I'll be using this on my next card too. This time I'm starting with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it right down the middle at 4 1/4. This is a basic side folding card. But now we need to score halfway from the edge of the card to the score line, just like we've done many times. In this case, that's at 2 1/8 of an inch. My scoring tool there's a mark there, so it's easy to find. By the way, I do recommend using heavyweight cardstock for easel cards so they stand up nicely. Lightweight cardstock will be kind of floppy and it won't give as good of results. Okay, so now I have my easel card, and right below the score line, I'm adding 2 pieces of pool cardstock that are layered together. I just thought that would be a nice little border to put behind our large floral. Still a very simple card. I put adhesive below that score line, added my border, and then trimmed off the excess. This is a great way to use up some of your scraps. Okay, now I have my large floral die cut, and I'm only putting adhesive on the bottom portion of it. We only want to glue this below that center score line, not above. That way the die cut stands up when we do the easel feature. Off screen, I stamped a sentiment on the top front and on the inside bottom. I also created a ledge from some layered cardstock strips. That's the easiest way to do a ledge. So just a couple cardstock strips there and add some pearls and we're ready to go. So here you can see that beautiful floral image, very quickly colored with inking the layered stencils. And when you open it up, you have that fun easel feature. I like this one because it has the sentiment on the outside and the inside that match. And when you prop it up, it displays super nice. So here, let me hold it up so you can see what it looks like from the front. Great card to display. Now that we've done a basic horizontal easel card, let's step it up by making the flap just be that large die cut. So let me show you what this card looks like completed. It's the same floral image, but I didn't stamp with it, just did the inking over the stencil. And check this out, when you prop it up, the only thing standing up is that floral die cut. So it's very easy to do, very similar, but it really steps it up a bit by not having the cardstock flap, just having the die cut stand up. Again, I'm starting with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it right down the center at 4 1/4. Same thing as last time. But this time, instead of doing an additional score line, we're going to cut part of it off. So I'm cutting about an 1.75 inches off the bottom front of the card. You can change this to be whatever you want. This seemed to work really well. Now I have my large die cut here. I need to create something to hold it, to make that die cut a flap. So I'm just holding it where I want it to be, just holding it there, it's not glued, and then I'll flip it over. Now see that solid white area behind that die cut? I need to create a flap I can hide behind there. So I'm going to just draw a rectangle right up against the edge of the card. And that way I know what size flap to make. So now I am making a little mark here on another piece of cardstock to the same width and the same height. And I'll trim that piece of cardstock down. Just stick with me here. You'll see where I'm headed. You could also find a die cut that would hide back there. This was easier. Now I've got this white cardstock piece. I'll score it right down the middle, or roughly the middle. Doesn't have to be perfect. And this will be the flap that holds my die cut to the front of our card. Okay, so now let's put all the pieces together. I've opened up my little folded piece here, and on one half of it, I'm putting adhesive. I do recommend a strong adhesive here, such as liquid adhesive or a double-sided tape. I'm putting this so the score line lines up with the front edge of the card. So we'll have this little flap, and see how it gets hidden behind our die cut. Okay, so now all we need to do is add adhesive to the flap that's hanging out, and then put our die cut on it. Again, make sure your adhesive's strong so it holds on to that die cut. And there we have our easel card. So you could put any die cut on the front of it. I love that this one's large, so it really covers the front of the card and was fast to make. For the ledge on the inside, I layered up some white cardstock. These are cut to that 1 3/4 inches that we cut off the front of the card. So the top edge of our ledge meets up with the bottom of the flap on the front of the card. Right above that, I put a little bit of blue cardstock just for a little bit of definition. Okay, now for the stamp sentiment. I stamped a sentiment right there on the top front of the card. But then I wanted one that you could see when you opened up the card. So it needed to be hidden behind our floral bouquet. So here's how I did it. I opened up my card. It's helpful to have a MISTI stamping tool, but you could use an acrylic block. I have the word strong, and I'm making sure that when the card is closed, it'll be hidden by that flower. Once I'm sure it's in a good place, I can go ahead and stamp that. That way I'll be sure my sentiment is hidden. So here's the completed card. I just added some pearls to it, and that's it. When you open it up, you see the additional sentiment, and that die cut can prop up like an easel card. Thanks to those easy, quick to use layering stencils in that large image, it didn't take long to put this card together. By the way, that floral die cut, I did die cut 2 additional white layers to glue behind it, so it has some strength and dimension to it. Since it is kind of a large die cut, I thought it was good to have some layers since it is the easel portion of the card. And here's a comparison. The one on the left, we did the stamping with the stenciling, and the one on the right is just stenciled. Now, one last example for you. This is a slimline easel card, which is really fun to do. Now, for this, I used a layering stencil set meant for slimline, but in a previous video, I have used a similar stencil set from Pinkfresh for traditional card size. I'll link to it here so you can see how I created my background. So be sure to check that out. The video's on the top right. I just did inks, and then I also did glitter glitz gel to create a background. I'm not going to show it here because it's the same process that I did in the other video, just a different size. Now here I have the Pinkfresh Floral Harmony Die. I die cut this twice from white cardstock, glued them together. Now I'm putting glue on the back of that and adding it to white cardstock. And then I will trim around the oval. This just creates a layered white oval that will be a focal point on my card. I also have a Hugs sentiment from the Pinkfresh Phrase Builder Sending Die set. This is an older set I've used many times. And I'll add that right to the center of our oval. Now let's do the easel card portion. I have my background here. I trimmed it down to be a little bit smaller than most slimline cards. This is 3 3/4 inches wide by 8 inches tall. You could make this whatever size you want. This is a little bit shorter than most slimline. I don't know, I just decided to trim it that way. So I have a piece of cardstock here that is the same width as my background, 3 3/4 inches, but it's 11 inches long, just cut from a piece of regular cardstock. Now we need to do one score line on this, and that is at 3 inches. So that large flap on the right is the same size as our card front. So I'll fold there, and you'll see that this folded piece is the same size as our card front. Now that's not a big enough piece to do an easel, so we need to glue 2 together. So I have another piece of white cardstock that's the same size as our card front, 3 3/4 inches by 8. And we need to score this right at the halfway point, and that happens to be 4 inches. So you can make your card whatever size you want. You just always want to create the easel portion by scoring at the halfway point. So now I'll fold this. I need to glue this to that other white piece that we created. So I'm putting adhesive on the inside flap of the bigger piece, putting this additional piece that we created right into that score line and closing it. Now we have a giant easel card. I didn't have cardstock long enough to make this easel card by one piece, so I glued 2 together. Below the score line, I'm putting adhesive, and then we'll take our card front and add it to that. Same process we did at the beginning of the video, just different sizes. Okay, so now we have this giant slimline easel card. It's really impactful to have a card that stands up this tall. I really wanted to keep the front of this card simple so a lot of that background can show. It was really fun to do that layering. So here's a look at the completed card. Again, it is 3 3/4 inches by 8 inches. And check this out. When you open it, you have this easel card. And I did my ledge farther up on the inside so it'd stand tall. You can put your ledge wherever you want. It just makes the card stand up more or kind of prop down more. So this time I just did layered cardstock strips in black there for the ledge, and I stamped a sentiment underneath it. And in this example, I'll write my personal message there on the bottom so that that can be read when the card is standing. So it's totally up to you where you put that ledge and how much of the inside shows. All right, there you have loads of ideas for creating easel cards, and I actually have a few more ideas that I'll share in a video soon. Now, if you are interested in any of the supplies I use, they are linked below in my YouTube description. Also, I mentioned if you give this a thumbs up, it lets YouTube know you want to see more videos from me. Some people said that my thumbs up and thumbs down is turned off. Nope, you can still click it. No problem at all. Also, in the middle here, I have a couple other videos. One is that Starburst ink layered background, and the other is another easel card video. And in the top right is my blog where you can find much more. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again very soon.